Welcome. In previous session, we have seen about errors and types of errors in Java, impact of compile time error and runtime error in Java. In this session, we will see how to handle exception in Java. The two types of error which are mainly caused by programmer and user are leading to a different impact. Obviously, the impact of compile time error is simply the bytecode will not be generated, but the impact of runtime error is that the program terminates abnormally, data may loss, and the system may get crash. Now that we have seen at the statement where the exception generates at runtime, the JVM creates object of exception class and throws that object, and we get the description about that exception on the command prompt, and further statement in the code will not be executed. Now at runtime, the JVM, that is Java Virtual Machine, or the interpreter creates object of exception class, throws that object, and that object is thrown on the command prompt so that we get the information on the command prompt. For handling exception, we have to catch that object thrown by JVM, and we have to write the corrective code for handling it in the program itself. Now, there are two types of exceptions in Java: predefined, which is also known as a built in or system defined exception, and second category is user defined exception. There are few exceptions that are given by the Java developers already in the library. For example, the IO exception will be raised when a wrong type of input or output arises. This exception generally occurs at the read line statement, as we are reading the input from the user from the read line, and if I am expecting a number and if character is entered, the IO exception will be generated. Second exception is array index out of bounds exception. It will be generated when we will be trying to access array index out of size. Suppose I have an integer array of 5 size which is storing only 5 elements, and if I am trying to print or access a of sixth position which is not available because size is only 5, so that is out of boundary, so that time array index out of bounds exception will be raised. Array store exception will be generated if we try to store a different type of data into array. For example, I have an integer array, and if I am trying to store character or string type of value into the array, so array store exception will be generated when there are incompatible types. Next predefined exception is arithmetic exception. This will be raised when we try to divide any number by 0 in the Java code, so arithmetic exception will be raised. File not found exception. This will be generated if we try to open a file for reading purpose or a file operation and that file doesn't exist. If I am trying to open a file abc.txt but that is not available on the system, that time file not found exception will be generated. EOF exception, that is end of file exception. If I am trying to read contents from the file but already I have reached at the end of the file and if still I am reading, then EOF exception will be generated. Next predefined exception is interrupted exception. This is generally arised in multi-threaded programming where we are sending a running thread to the block state by using suspend, sleep, wait. So, by using these methods, we are forcefully interrupting the running thread which is executing on the CPU and sending it to the block or idle state. So that time interrupted exception will be generated. Now, in Java, the exception handling keywords are try, catch, throw, throws, and finally. So we will see how these words can be used to handle exception in Java. Now, the first two keyword, that is try and catch, will not be used individually. They are used together. Try without catch and catch without try will not work. The syntax of this statement is like in the try block we are supposed to write the statement which will be a cause for generating an exception, and immediately after closing bracket of try we should write the catch block which will have the object of exception class in the bracket as a parameter, and we can write the corrective code or handling code in the catch block. One try may have multiple catch blocks, and the matching catch block will execute whenever we run the code. Now we will see a program where we can use the try catch block. Suppose I am writing class test demo main function, and I want to read a number from user. So I am creating object of data input stream which will be reading input from system input device. I will be giving a message to the user, enter numerator. We will declare variable for numerator, denominator, and answer. Numerator we will be reading, and we will convert that by using wrapper class method integer dot parseInt, and same statement we will repeat for denominator, enter denominator that I am taking into d variable. Now suppose I write here a is equal to n divided by d. I am performing the division operation, and whatever will be the output that we will print over here, answer is equal to plus a, close of main, closing of class. Save the file as a test demo.java, compile the code, and here it is showing an error because we have used the readline function for reading the values. Okay, the name of variables are same. Object of data input stream, suppose I am taking it as O and O dot readline. For the denominator, I have used D variable. Now we will compile the code. It is showing no error. Run the code. Enter numerator. Enter denominator. Answer is equal to 0. Run the code again. Enter numerator. Enter denominator 0. And it is showing an exception, arithmetic exception, because we cannot divide any number by 0, and arithmetic exception is a predefined exception in Java which is raised when we try to divide a number by 0. So here the program gets terminated abnormally. So how we can handle this code by writing try catch block. So at this line, this statement is will be cause for an exception because we are trying to divide a number and it may be possible that user may enter 0 as a denominator value. So the statement which we feel that the exception may occur that we will write in the try block, and once the exception occurs, if you have observed over here, once we have entered a denominator, the further statement, whatever it may be over here, will not be executed because the exception has occurred. So further statement will not run. So the statement where the exception can occur, that statement we are writing in the try block. And immediately after try block, we can write the catch statement. Here we can give the name of exception that we know because at this line the arithmetic exception may raise. So object of arithmetic exception, and here we can write a corrective code for handling it. So whenever denominator will be 0, and if we try to divide it by 0, this statement will not run. JVM will create object of exception class at this line. That object will be thrown, and before going it to the command prompt for abnormal execution or termination, we will we will be catching that arithmetic exception object in the catch block, and we will write the corrective code over here by changing the code. I will try to divide the numerator by 2 always if there is a denominator value as a 0, and display the answer. Let's compile the code again, run the code, enter a numerator, suppose 15, denominator 5, answer is equal to 3, and the statement by is executed. Now this statement or the program has terminated normally because there is no exception because denominator value is non-zero. Now run the code again, give the numerator and give the denominator value as a 0. Still the normal execution of code has happened over here because we have catch the exception object immediately when that has created over here. When we had entered a denominator as 0 at this line, the exception object is created by JVM and that is thrown, and it has jumped to the matching catch block where arithmetic exception object is received, and we have corrected the code by writing our handling or corrective code for handling that exception. So we have divided the numerator compulsorily by 2 if denominator value is 0, or you can write whatever code you want to write over here, and then statement is executed, that is pi. So this is how try catch block works. If at any statement in the try block, if exception occurs, JVM will create object of exception class and further statement will not run, and the object will be thrown and it will jump to the matching catch block, and the corrective code written in the catch block will be executed. So this is about try catch block. Next keyword is throws. Now suppose in the Java class and object concept, if we have already written a project having method which is a group of statement, and there is possibility that the statement which are enclosed in the method are responsible for generating an exception. So what we will do, we will try to include the try catch block in the method itself for handling that exception, but that will increase the code line of our method. So instead of that, we have throws keyword for handling the exception. This is always written in front of the method with throws keyword and the name of exception class. It may be IO exception, arithmetic exception, interrupted exception, any. So the difference between this try catch and the throws keyword is that in try catch block we have the chance or option to handle the exception in our own way by writing the corrective code. But in case of throws, in case of throws, JVM will handle that exception by its own, and there is no chance to write the corrective code for handling the exception. So that will be handled internally. We cannot write the corrective code of our choice. Moving on, the next keyword for handling the exception is finally. We have seen the try catch block. So if exception doesn't occur at the statement written in the try block, the catch block will not be executed because the it will be a error free code. So that will be a smooth execution and normal termination of our program. But if at any statement, if the exception occurs in the try block, it will not execute the further statement in the try block, and it will jump to the matching catch block in the code, and the statement written in the catch block will execute. So if there are few statements that we want to run always, even if exception occurs or if it doesn't occur, so we can write that code in the finally block. Because if we write that code in the catch block, then there is the possibility that the catch block will execute only if exception occurs, and the statement will not run if the exception doesn't occur. So that compulsory code we can write in the finally block. Now the last keyword is throw keyword, that is specifically used for creating user defined exception, for creating our own exception as per our project or as per our application. So we have to think of the flow. We have to think about the statement where we want to generate an exception. And at that time we have to create object of exception class, and we need to throw it explicitly. Now suppose if I want to write a project for reading a person's name and age, and if I want to apply a condition that if the age of person is below 18, there should be an error message or exception to be thrown by the code in the same template as we get it by default. And if the age is above 18, the message should be displayed as you can vote. So for age a variable, for name n variable, data input stream object, enter name, n is equal to o dot read line, enter age that we are reading in a variable by converting it. Now the condition is that we have to check for age. If age which is in a variable, if it is greater than 18, there should be a message that you can vote. But if age is less than 18, there should be an exception. That exception should be generated and that should be thrown to the command prompt. We know that there is a predefined format of throwing an exception like line number. Its predefined template is written already in the exception class. So, how we can write the code? We need to write one more class. Suppose my exception by extends exception class, and in this class in the parameterized constructor we have to pass a string message and call the base class constructor by super keyword. Now let me tell you how it executes. Now in the exception class there is a parameterized constructor of this exception class which is displaying all the exceptions in the Java code. So the format is fixed: line number, name of file, reason, description. So we want our project exception should be displayed in the same format. So we need to call the constructor of exception class. So how to call the constructor of base class? So there is solution that we have to use super keyword in our own class. That's why we have written class myexe extends exception, and in our constructor we have called the super and method by passing this m variable. Now why this m variable is required? Now, whenever I want to throw an exception, I have to pass a message that this message should be displayed as an error. Like, suppose invalid age, you cannot vote. Generally, the exception's first letter of every word is capital, that is recommended. So, I want to display this message. So I have to pass this message to this my exe constructor so that it will be received in M, and by using super this M will be passed to the exception class constructor and we will get this error message displayed in the default format. So for invoking this constructor, we have to create object of this class. So we will create object of this class over here by new and the name of our class, that is exe, and the object will be created and the constructor will be called and the exception base class constructor will be invoked and we will get the message. But we have to tell JVM or interpreter that this is the exception that we have generated with this message, have to throw it at this point. So for that the throw keyword is used to generate the exception over here and throw it explicitly. So now let's run the code, compile the code, enter name, suppose ABC, age, suppose I am giving 23. It is showing you can vote because there is no exception as age is valid. A normal message is displayed by using system.out.println. Now we will run the code, enter a name, and I am giving age 12. So it is showing our message that we have given as a error message. So it is displayed over here, invalid age, you cannot vote in the same template of the Java. In thread main name testdemo.java at line number 22, we are getting this error. So that template is shown as an warning, alert, or exception. So by using throw keyword, we can create our own exception and throw it explicitly. We have to just remember that for that we have to write one more class which extends exception class, and in its constructor we have to call the super and the base class constructor. So in this session we have seen about the exception handling mechanism in Java and the five keywords try, catch, throw, throws, and finally. And we have implemented the code by using these five keywords for exception handling. See you in the next session. Thank you.